money into the economy was to help businesses get resuscitated so that URA can collect taxes. So we are going to take a very detailed conversation on this. So you'll allow me take my seat, but if you want to be part of the conversation happening, just go on Twitter and drop us a line. We will put these questions to our panelists. All right, give me a second, I'll take a seat. Okay, once again, it's good to have you. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We are about 14 days to closing the financial year, and you had quite a big target, and it came, fluctuating, up and about, and then eventually I think it settled on 22 trillion shillings, up from 18, and you had all that target from the Minister of Finance. Let me start with James. How are we doing in terms of beating our targets with just a few days to the close of the financial year? Where are we standing currently for this concluding financial year? Perhaps we could start there for us to be grounded to start the conversation. Let me also invite the acting director. No, I think we'll have him for the second session. Yeah. I think we'll have him for the second session. All right, let me invite him anyway. Let me invite Mr. Moses Kagwa, who is the Acting Director, Economic Affairs, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Mr. Moses, are you here? Yes, you're welcome, sir. We had planned you for the second session, but it's okay, we can add you on this. Kindly take your seat. All right, I thought we could just, first of all, give a round of how we're performing for this concluding financial in terms of our tax collections. Mr. Dong, if you can just maybe give us a holistic picture of how we're performing as we get close to the close of the financial year.
Thank you, Solomon. All protocols observed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is, as mentioned, James Odong, Acting Commissioner, Domestic Taxes. In terms of performance, we are not doing very bad given the conditions we are in. So far, in terms of domestic taxes revenue collections, we are performing at around 90%, and from July to date. And as we move towards the end of the financial year, we are focusing on specific areas that we can achieve within this limited time. As the Commissioner General mentioned earlier, the specific processes that we have put in place have been the biggest enablers in terms of this revenue collection. And specifically, the obligation of filing returns. So far, so good. Taxpayers are using it adequately. As she mentioned yesterday, we received the biggest number of returns filed online. Some taxpayers have paid, others have declared and not paid. So we are urging even those ones to ensure that they do the subsequent payments. But even besides that, we're also focusing on those who are going to file provisional income returns for the year, and those who also filing final year returns. All mechanisms are in place to ensure that they do it as easily as possible through the online procedure. So we very much hope that we shall be able to achieve the target.
That's quite optimistic. I'm glad URA is on track, and we'll talk about the incentives and the opportunities and the different avenues that URA is helping to support the taxpayers in honoring their obligation shortly. And I think it's also important for us to get a rough outlook for customs. If you can just paint for us a picture, how are we doing for the concluding financial year? Dr. Kaka.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, participants, and all protocols observed. Dr. Kaka Geoffrey, the Assistant Commissioner of Trade, and here representing the Commissioner of Customs. The outlook for customs performance, we've been performing, I would say we've been performing well, and I can say we are on site as far as the target for this financial year is concerned. We are very optimistic that we'll be able to achieve the target for this financial year. And the area that we are focused on basically has been on trade facilitation, the non-intrusive inspection for verification of goods, especially given the COVID situation. We are able to actually verify using the scanners, and then risk management intervention is also an aspect that we have actually focused on. Right now we are at 93%. So in the remaining few days we should be able to meet our target. And the focus has been on looking at our clients and facilitating them really to go through our process as fast as possible, and also understand their business and see how we can support them. That has been our focus of recent, and even engage them and see how they are doing as a business, and if there is any effort across the border, knowing that our border is porous in a way, but our presence, our surveillance team is doing a good job. Thank you.
It's really good news to hear that we are on track and that URA is over 90% in terms of hitting its targets. And can I just ask the audience to clap for the taxpayers? Hasn't it? Because it was a fragile economy, right? Businesses are struggling. URA is under a lot of pressure to collect. Delicate path to balance. What did the Ministry of Finance do to put in place tax measures and policies that do not gravely affect businesses, but at the same time ensuring that people are honoring their obligations? It was quite a very, very delicate path to walk. How did you walk through it for this concluding financial year, Moses?
Good morning, viewers. Yes, when you look at our growth trajectory, in the year 2018-2019, we grew at 6.8%. And the year 19-20, we had expected to grow at 6.5%. So we had been doing very well as an economy in terms of growth. Then came COVID. In 2019, that was about March. And then our forecast for growth had to come down. And of course, last year, 2019-20, we grew by a paltry 3%. So going to 2020-21, we realized that with the lockdown measures, the logistical disruptions, we wouldn't get as many imports coming in as we had anticipated. We are not getting trade because when you lock down, then the traders get affected. So that affected. Then to make matters worse, on the services side, and which usually bring us a lot of money, we had challenges with transport. We had challenges with education. Education was closed. Tourism, and these were really big revenue earners. So what did we do for this current year? We put in place some measures to try and encourage businesses. One of the things we did was to allow businesses to defer payment of taxes. From March, I think we went on even up to December, to allow them to defer payment of taxes like VAT in some instances, or corporation tax, pay as you earn. And the whole reason was that let the companies and the taxpayers retain this money, and instead of going to borrow, they use it in their operations. So that was helping to ease their cash flow. Then we also removed penalties and interest that taxpayers had, because a lot of taxpayers owed URL government a lot of money. It was to almost the tune of 3 trillion. So we said, let them be exempted from these obligations, because we knew the challenges they were having. So those are specifically the things we did, and we didn't raise a lot of taxes the whole of last year, because we really knew that businesses were down and people were struggling. At that time, we are not very sure when the pandemic would actually end.
After the lockdown. Let's get back to domestic taxes here. Mr. James Odongo, have you been able to perform well for this concluding financial year? And what strategies do you have for the next financial year to meet your targets and support businesses?
As the Commissioner General mentioned, we have been able, mainly because of the efficient processes and systems that have been put in place, that have enabled taxpayers to fulfill their respective obligations, both of filing and making subsequent payments, and also any other requirements that is required for them as per the law. And given the implementation of even the new solutions, that is the IFRI solution and the DTS, we have relied
James,
a lot.
You people are speaking French to people who have never heard these terms. Maybe can you just detail them in terms of, like, the abbreviations, but in full?
Okay. The IFRI solution is the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution. That is a solution that has been put in place to ensure we facilitate taxpayers in terms of issuing the electronic invoices, what we call the electronic invoice or receipt. And that is a primary document that URA relies on in terms of making declarations for VAT specifically, because that is the one that is in scope for this financial year. Then the digital tracking solution is a solution that is meant to monitor production volumes for manufacturers who are specifically producing gazetted products. Currently, we have tobacco products, we have wines and spirits, we have soda and water. This financial year, there has been an addition of cement and sugar. So each of those products there's a digital stamp that is applied, which everyone in the public can check to verify if this is a genuine product. And as it is applied, we get the information of what has been produced. Those are the solutions. So with the implementation of those solutions, URA has been able to have data to rely on in terms of establishing the tax position of the taxpayer. And what we do under most circumstances is you check that data vis-a-vis what they file, and you engage the taxpayer. We move around, we go to chukubos, talk to the taxpayers, engage them, educate them on their obligations, and many have followed suit and come on board. However, there are also other enforcement measures that we have implemented along the way in terms of following up those who are not complying. And in most cases, of course, we have cautioned them. Then there are those, especially those who have not complied for digital tax stamps, whom we have penalized. And eventually, the number has grown. As I speak now, the number of taxpayers who have complied for digital tax stamps is over 240, which is very commendable. And now we are realizing quite an amount in terms of local excise duty.
This is exciting, that people are now embracing digital solutions to honor their tax obligations. Let me come to you, Dr. Kaka. What have you done right this time, and what incentives have you put in place to support the taxpayer, especially at customs level?
Yeah, customs, one of the things that we prioritized was, first of all, to secure the supply chain, the logistic and supply chain movement of cargo from across from the port up to various destinations. Because with the COVID situation, and the aspect was, first of all, secure, to make sure that cargo actually comes in. That was very, very key. So one of the initiatives was the aspect of the coordinated border management. That was very, very critical for us. And also, the other initiative that was also the automation of all our processes. Over 99% our processes are automated. Then also to bring in the government agencies, ministry and departments under the single window platform. Because you realize that the approval processes in clearing cargo, it involves a number of stakeholders. So within the single window process, single window, the national single window, that platform has actually brought every government agencies on board, and we're able actually to facilitate clearance of cargo online. Those are some of the game changers. Then the other aspect is the aspect of what I would say the automated bonded warehouse management. It's also an aspect that, such that we secure cargo from the border up to the bond and until when they are cleared. And also being able to use the pre-arrival information, the pre-arrival clearance information. That's also an aspect that we have invested in, and this has also worked for us, especially when we're looking at the risk management, the national targeting, such that we know what is coming in, and to secure the supply chain that is safe for all the participants, all the stakeholders. All in all, what we've done is actually trade facilitation that will reduce the cost of doing business, and design solutions that are suitable for every player. especially in a time like this, it was very important that the supplies for COVID response was needed to come handy, and in implementing the tax policy measure intervention, where all those goods were exempted, we are able to secure the supply chain and deliver those goods for response to COVID emergencies. Yeah, thank you.
Before you pass in the mic, Patience talked about smugglers at the border points, and it's still a challenge. How have you managed to go past it? And she talked about it in her opening remarks, and one of the things she said that you are installing scanners to detect smugglers, especially along border points. How did you manage to deal with this, and how much have we lost in smugglers along the border points?
I beg your pardon, you stated...
No, the issue of smugglers. Patience talked about it, and normally it happens at the different border points.
At different points. Now, we have one-stop border point posts across in our major entry points, and this one brings all the stakeholders and customs into one office, and in this we are able to work within the same environment and even share the same system, the cargo tracking and the systems and the scanners, all those information, such as transparency, and all the stakeholders are within there, within the same, and with all the other protocols also sharing and using the same protocols as far as safety is concerned, as far as clearance is concerned. All those are within the border points. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Thank you for that. Moses, let me bring you in again. Now that we're closing the financial year, let's look towards the next financial year. And your eyes and ears will be on URA to see and put them a little bit on pressure to deliver on meeting their targets. So how is it, what are the projections, like what, for the next financial year, how has the Minister of Finance and indeed government planned to provide tax incentives and policies that are going to support the taxpayer even when we are still struggling? We just went in a 42-day lockdown, not really lockdown, but okay, partial lockdown, because people are not moving, I should say. But what are you putting in place for the next financial year to ensure that people are not suffocated, but as well as ready to honor their commitments to paying their taxes?
Thank you, Solomon. There is a saying that to tax and to please, and no more to love or to hate, is not given to man. So, if you think you can tax to please people, and yet the the expenditure budget of 44.7 trillion. How are we going to generate resources to provide? You are also told, I think yesterday we had these discussions about our debt to GDP ratio increasing and going almost beyond the 50% mark. And why is that so? Because we have a lot of things that we must do. This year, which is ending, we actually had to borrow more because of the effects of COVID-19. But we also had other things to cater for, like the oil and gas. We want really to have the final investment decision. So the investments in oil and gas dictated that we do go out there and borrow. So, and then we had a very huge revenue shortfall we are projecting because we had about 21.8 trillion as a projection. But with the lockdown and the effects of the pandemic, we realized that we couldn't make it. So we had to lower our projections to 19.3 trillion. So we had almost a 2.5 trillion gap in the budget, and we had to borrow. Now, borrowing, as we know all, is not sustainable. So we had to sit down and balance, as you've said, carefully. What do we do moving forward? How do we raise revenues that we need to raise going forward? At the same time, how do we make sure that we do not stifle economic activities? So it's a very delicate balancing act we had to perform. And going forward, and of course, we have what we call the domestic revenue mobilization strategy. We're going to face over the medium term. So looking at the measures that are in the domestic revenue mobilization strategy, we pulled out some and said, let us bring these ones forward to generate revenue. And of course, the target for next year is 22,422,000,000. So we had to have a mix of policy and administrative measures. The policy measures amount to 422 billion, 422. And then URA has compliance, what they are going to do that Patience was talking about, amounting to about 990 billion. So there is more.
This weekend on UBC.
Whoever said life on top was boring was a very short man. On this week's episode, GM Laura sets up an epic breakfast meal on top of the falls.
You know, not many people have actually been here. Not many people, because they just do the game drive, the boat ride, and then they don't get to see this. So it's always a really good experience for them.
Ranger guide George takes us around the oldest and largest park, Murchison Falls National Park, on a honeymoon walk, spotting some pretty interesting wildlife. A perfect balance between adventure and relaxation.
You see, a park is one of those nice places you can be. For me, I would call it a stress buster.
A stress buster?
Yes, because you're out there, you're being stressed, you have a lot of phone calls, like if you're in Kampala, you know how Kampala looks.
We also have enough air.
It is intellectually engaging.
And you can only become a leader when there are problems.
I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether rights from another country can be, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odong Thor.
Very welcome.
Probably the most experienced talk show moderator in Uganda, with a team of illustrious panelists. Honorable Abdul Katuntu, a seasoned legislator, politician, and senior lawyer.
The worst that can happen to any society is to have a press which is ignorant.
Honorable Margaret Mohanga, a veteran journalist, legislator, entrepreneur, and development consultant. And Ramadan Gobi, an economist and university don.
Only audit institutions, effective budget tracking, e-government, e-procurement, and curbing illicit financial flow, they are the only practical ways of fighting corruption.
So, all on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Prosper with Airtel Money today. Become an Airtel Money agent. Apply or register today as an Airtel Money agent free of charge. Or call us on 0800 327 327 toll free. Submit your business documents to be verified by Airtel Uganda free of charge. Feedback will be communicated within a maximum of 5 working days. The Airtel team will be in touch with you for the next business steps, still at no cost. Inquiries, applications, or registrations and verification are all free of charge. To register or know more, call us today on 0800 327 327 toll free. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome to Coffee Production Tips, brought to you by Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Uganda Coffee Development Authority is the government agency mandated to promote and oversee the coffee industry as a whole by developing research, facilitating coffee production and productivity, by training farmers on good agricultural practices, controlling the quality and improving the marketing of coffee for the benefit of stakeholders. In this series, a trained farmer, Mr. Wally Christopher, gives tips and demonstrates digging the hole, planting coffee seedlings, mulching, training coffee seedlings, and stamping coffee.
After planting 9 to 12 months, there's a very routine management which we have to do, because this has one branch, but we want to get a multiple branching system so that we get the best out of this coffee. When the coffee is like that one, when it is about 3 to 4 branches, it will give you maybe 5 to 7 kilos of harvested coffee. So what we do is to first look at the plant like this one. So you train. The word training is